Alright, so this is the free-for-all segment of the tactics gallery that we've been doing. And so I here am playing as the Tyranids, and they're the kind of, I think they're kind of the more Indian-based faction in Medieval 2. And in the white we will have Vex, who is helping us out with it for the project, and he's playing as Poland. And in the blue, we will have Wolfie or Keegan, and he's playing as Scotland. So I've got a interesting army composition, to say the least. I've got three elephants with, or elephant artillery, so they have miniature cannons on their backs, and three elephants with archers. I also have three just elite archer units to help mop up some infantry and maybe some cavalry, and then pikes and spears for my main infantry line. And then I have three units of General's Bodyguard for some cavalry. So I've set up on the hill so I can probably get a couple early shots at Bex or Wolfie, and hopefully kind of dwindle their armies down with the artillery. And at the moment, he was just, or Wolfie was just finished getting his forces in place because the game was kind of not letting him. So here's just kind of a showcase of the spears I got there. I think they're more elite units. And then here are the elephant models. I think there's, for the elephant artillery, there's 6 per model, and then for the archers, I think there's 7 or 8. There's more for the archers because they don't do near as much damage. But they, regardless, elephants in the game are incredibly strong, and it takes a lot to kill them. Sadly, I didn't get to do really any charges with them because I can find the switch to melee button, and it's not the sword, that's skirmish mode actually, so they'll run away from melee, but you have to drain their ammo supplies first, from what I found, and it took too long to do that. So I didn't get really any elephant charges in, but most of the other units got in some pretty nasty melee fights. Especially the cavalry. Yeah, anyways, I forget what map we're playing on, but it's just free-for-all with 3 of us. So I think we all kind of have our own little hilly region. In my opinion, I got the best start just because I have the massive elevation. And then Wolfie's all the way in the valley down there. And you can see, as Poland, he brought a lot of pikemen, because that's their main attribute. They can bring pike, like they have the best pikes in the game. And he has a fair amount of noble archers, and I don't think he didn't bring any cavalry. Whereas Vex brought, I think, 3 units of dismounted knights and 2 archers, and then that's 5. So he brought 15 units of horses, of hussars, which are like cavalry in this game, to try and flank us from the sides. And you can see them on the left there moving down the hill as I switch over here. But yeah, you can see he brought 3 units of chivalric knights and I think 1 general's bodyguard, so those are his only heavily armored troops. And again, he's got another over here on this flank. So he's got 2 detachments or massive detachments of cavalry trying to flank us and hit our lines and just outmaneuver us. This kind of didn't work out too well for him, since me and Wolfie respectively have a lot of spears and anti-cavalry each, so the horsemen are kind of really well countered. Also, they can't get that great of charges off at elephants because they're too large, so they kind of stop the charge. And since I saw them, I began to just kind of unload all of the ammo from the elephants, and I got my archers to target them as well. Just 3 archers I have in the front to try and whittle them down so they couldn't get into my infantry lines or to my general or my other cavalry. So, yeah. And at the moment, we're all just kind of boxing our ranged units to keep them safe, and none of us really wants to have a distinct engagement. We just kind of want to whittle each other down first, because it'd be too costly, and when we go to fight the third person, or the second person, I guess, for us, we would have been too damaged, so we kind of each want to just sit back and let our ranged units do the damage. I'm an advantage because I did bring a form of artillery, and it allowed me to basically force their hand in terms of coming to me melee, so they got shot up a lot more. And as you can see, I think he was trying to go for my general, but I managed to get all of my ranged units firing, and I think he was just trying to like flank with the cavalry while we were preoccupied with his main force or each other's main forces, and then just do some hit run tactics and a kind of a form of hammer and anvil and cycle charging. So like hitting us in the back while we're in melee or hitting our ranged troops while they're exposed. But it doesn't work out too well for him on my side at least. I didn't know. I'm not quite sure how it went on Wolfie's, but Wolfie has mostly pikes, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Vex's whole cavalry detachment on that side I think got routed back. And here, all my elephants are causing fear to his units, and I've got pikes engaging the cavalry. So it's not the best area for them to be in. And since they're being rained down by archer fire from the elephants, archer fire from the archers themselves, it definitely made for an easy victory on my part. However, I think he does manage to. I don't know, yeah, but I'm one of my spear unit or halberd units does take some massive casualties, and I think that's mostly from friendly fire actually. I did have him in the best spot because I think they were being trampled by elephants, because I didn't realize that in this version of the game, elephants and cavalry can actually run over their own troops. And then they were also getting showered with arrows while my archers and my elephant archers were targeting the cavalry. So the unit of halberds that got targeted, these two, the one with 36 and the one with 18 on the bottom, respectively, each took some pretty heavy casualties, which they probably shouldn't have, or they shouldn't have needed to. So at this point, Vex is kind of out of the game. I mean, he's got a small like main force, but his main strategy was the cavalry. So I managed to rout his or the side that he sent on mine, and you can see the massive amount of Hussar corpses on the left there. And so he lost his main kind of power in the game. And you can see here, Keegan just doesn't want to push up against me, just simply because I have more range units than him, I have a decent amount of melee, and I have more maneuverability than him, and I've got more mass, so the elephants aren't as endangered to the pikes. However, he's really got no choice since he has nothing that can match the range of the artillery. So he's got to start moving his pikes forward, to which I respond by targeting said pikes with the artillery, and when they get in close enough range, the archers start unleashing volleys. And there was not much organization to this battle, because most of the time we were either dealing with one of each other's forces, or like both at the same time. So like Vex in the cavalry after Wolfie's general or something of that sort. So we didn't have too much time to actually put in place careful strategies. So it was more just trying to whittle down the other force before they got to you, and then trying to just decimate them once they managed to reach you. And you can see one of my elephants, I think they've been getting shot by the artillery behind them, is only down to 3 elephants, and it says it's got 8 in the unit size there, but I believe that's including the riders. And here's an interesting feature that the elephants have. They can run amok and kill your own troops and everybody else's troops, but thankfully they ran into the other elephants, so it did not, I think it killed maybe 1 or 2 elephants, but it did not cause too much damage to my lines, where if they had run through all the infantry and the cavalry, it would have been devastating. And I didn't realize at that point you could actually kill the elephants, so I kind of just let them run. I think there's only 1 left at this point. And so at this, for the engagement, I've sent my infantry to just kind of stall them, and I've got my archers, who are currently using fire arrows to try and demoralize the troops along with the elephants, causing the leadership shock, and the more, like, just the moral debuff, to try and break his main line. So, and you can see that didn't end too well for the halberds. They kind of were outmatched in terms of melee. So I've got to bring my entire infantry line over to try and just slow them down so the morale shock can get into place. Because once they start routing, then I can hunt them down with ranged attacks. And you can see there's 1 elephant left, and I think it just runs away at that point. Yeah, it's just running off. So at this point, I think none of my I haven't used my cavalry at all. So I'm like, okay, I'll try and get some of the archers because he's been shooting at my elephants and doing some decent damage to him. So I popped the horn to try and rally that one group and maybe stop the group of elephants from running amok. I don't know if it stops the elephants from running amok, but I think it does eventually rally the spears that are running away. However, as his troops are running, they're getting self-flamed by the arrows, so causing more morale damage from both being shot at and being burnt alive, so that the routing Scottish troops just don't come back. And since I've got my main infantry and cavalry and missiles attacking Wolfie in Scotland, I decided to send my elephant battalion to try and harass Vex, just so he's not at full strength when we finally do our last engagement. And I think I see up on that hill all the way over there Vex's SARs. I'm not sure if they're running away or not, but I think they're just kind of looking to pick some of the Scottish troops off. However, and here is the massive blunder on the AI's part. I sent him to charge after routing units and routing swords, and one of the cavalry units just decided to charge right into a bunch of pikes, even though I ordered them explicitly not to, so the AI just kind of killed itself there. Although, looking at the numbers, they haven't taken any casualties yet, but I think Wolfie started sending more pikes to deal with them because of that. And you can see Vex is sending the Hussars to do some damage to my elephants, although I don't think the Hussars are anti-large. Like, they're not spears or pikes or anything. So they don't get any damage off, really, on the elephants. I mean, I think they kill a couple just from the impact, but after the first engagement, I think they just kind of start running away. Yeah, so see, he's sending his swords, and oh, those are the Polish guards. So they do have a bit more stopping power behind those lances because they're just in heavy armor. And at this point, I realize I can actually kill the routing elephants, so to stop them to run amok. So I do that just in case it runs back and hits some of my routing troops or something of that sort. And here you can see the dismounted Polish knights kind of charging at the elephants, which not a good idea, but he doesn't really have much of a choice. He's got all his archers trying to attack them. And okay, so those Hussars were just waiting for something to pick off because they charged my cavalry. And so I'm trying to pull them out of the really, really poor engagement because there's so many Hussars, and while the general's bodyguard is very, very elite, it's just there's so few in number because I think the general's bodyguard have 20, 21 if it's the general unit, and the Hussars have around 40 each, and there was like 5 Hussar units there. Okay, so at this point, the Scottish general has fallen, so that provides a massive leadership debuff to the Scottish troops. So I think they're permanently routed at this point. Like, I don't think any of them are coming back. So at this point, it's me against Vex. Although I think I do have my infantry still kind of mopping up the Polish that might be coming, or the Scottish and the Polish that might be coming back there. So the Hussars and I think some of the pikes that might not have broken before the general died and might still be fighting. So there's still a few problems, but for the most part, I've won this one. And yeah, he's just trying to send whatever he can that's left at me, just to do as much damage as possible. Which, fair enough, considering fire arrows against elephants are actually pretty decent counter, because the elephants, once their morale drops, they do start running amok, which can cause them to start killing their own troops. So, good idea on that, to try and cause the morale shock damage to the elephants as well as regular damage to try and kill them, just so that I wouldn't have the utility with them. And yeah, at this point I only have 2 units of elephants left, and they're both artillery. All of the archers are dead, and one of the artillery units are dead. So I'm not doing too great for myself, mostly because I sent the majority of my infantry and cavalry after the Hussars and the Scottish forces. But the fact that I did manage to break the main lines almost completely with just the elephants, and there you see, I think one of the cannons hit Vex's general's bodyguard, and managed to kill it, and kill the actual general itself, so all of his units are routing. So, yeah, at this point, I've won the battle completely. I think there's like a couple hussars that might be around, and I'm just chasing all the archers and heavy knights. And you can see some of my units are routing, I think because they're getting trampled or shot by arrows or something of the sort. But at this point, everything on the battlefield is routed. I think later on, after the recording stops, Vex might bring, like, I think he brings a hussar back or something, but it gets beat up pretty quick by all the spears, the archers, and the cannons firing at it. So yeah, and that was the battle.